Hi, good night. Welcome to Spoken by Abby, and you're in Miss Abby's Science Corner. Tonight we are doing part two of the grade 7 lesson, Science and the Scientist, with the topic being home and laboratory safety rules and symbols. So in part one, we spoke about lab safety rules and the students should be able to recall that. So for this part two, we will be picking up with safety labels, describing them, and we will also discuss the difference between safe and unsafe science class. So let's go. So as you can see, we have 10 symbols here. And it is really important for students, especially grade 7, who they are just starting to develop an understanding of what a lab is, a science lab, and they are just starting to know what they do in a science lab. It is important for them to identify the different labels so that they know the degree of danger in regards to the type of chemicals that they will be working with as they increase their grade level, and if they do choose the sciences. It's always good to know overall for life purposes. So we'll begin by talking about that symbol we have there, which is an explosive, and everyone should know this one. So an explosive chemical is one that if probably exposed to light or fire, anything like that, it will easily explode, and we don't want that because that means destruction of property, loss of life, etc. We also have a symbol here that describes or indicates that a chemical would be an oxidizing chemical, which means that it would be easily caught on fire, especially when exposed to air. We also have an extremely flammable chemical, which is self-explanatory. Also, we will see chemicals with labels that are corrosive, which generally means that if it is exposed to your skin, the flesh or material, it will likely cause destruction or injury. And for example, you would think of bleach in its full strength. That is a corrosive chemicals, and children should not be playing with kids or any household products that are corrosive, and especially products in the lab. You should really exercise safety when dealing with those chemicals. On the right side of the screen, you will see a label here which also indicates dangerous for the environment. So for example, some chemicals that maybe they use on plants as insecticides to keep away the insects from damaging the crop. Maybe that will seep into the soil and kill the microorganisms and so cause the plants to die, plants and trees. Or you perhaps have oil spill and other spill of chemicals, for example, from industrial factories that seep into the river and the oceans, and they kill the fish because they can't survive in a toxic environment. So that's for dangerous for the environment. Chemicals like those with labels like that will cause danger to the environment. We also have on the bottom left of the screen a big X that indicates harmful, and as we see on the right side, it can mean that a chemical is an irritant as well. So maybe this chemical, if persons exposed to it can cause, for example, rashes or an allergic reaction, anything like that, to cause your internal organs to stop working and could possibly cause death because of that reaction. We also have the symbol highly flammable, which is another degree of being flammable. And finally, on the left, the right, I'm sorry, we have a very toxic symbol, a label that represents a very toxic chemical. And once again, this is just a higher degree of toxicity. As we see, the chemical in the middle bottom it represents a toxic chemical. So these are some general label symbols that is good to know, so that when you approach them, you know how to handle them and you know that you need to stay clear of them if you're not wearing your PPEs or personal protective equipment. All right, so for the next slide, we just have a table here that represents hazard symbols, old and new. So the new symbols, they are really attractive to the eye, and the students could easily, if this is on an exam paper, and after reviewing this video presentation, they could more than likely remember, because these symbols are very colorful in comparison to if we only looked at the symbols that were just black and white. So basically, this is just a summary again of the meaning. So the top symbol, as we said, it represents toxicity, which can also be referred to as being poisonous, which can cause death if swallowed, breathed in, or absorbed by the skin. We have corrosive, we spoke about that, so it attacks and destroys living tissues such as skin and the eyes. Oxidizing, a more specific definition than what we just said. It provides oxygen to make other substances burn more fiercely. We did not talk about radiation or radioactive chemicals. These chemicals are damaging to living tissues, possibly causing DNA damage and mutation. So basically, um, if you're exposed to radioactive chemicals, they distort your DNA, and as a result, the physical representation, or if you know about phenotype, the physical presentation of the changes, the inward changes in regards to the DNA will cause deformation. So in some countries, for example, I believe in Japan, where they were exposed to radiation, and across the world, different instances, their babies that are born are highly deformed. So you can even read up on that, students, to get a better understanding. We also have here highly flammable symbol, which represents a chemical that catches fire easily. We spoke about that. And lastly, biohazard chemicals. These are biological substances that pose a threat to human health. So for this one, we don't usually see it in a normal lab setting, school lab setting that is. This is usually seen in industrial labs, where they have to be working in their full suits, PPE, suits of PPEs, so that they don't limit the interaction that they have with these type of substances, because they can be really deadly. Right, so that's it for the symbols. Pretty easy to remember. All right, so now we're gonna go on to talk about safe and unsafe science class or science lab. So now that we've learned about the lab safety rules and the symbols, we we have a better understanding of what it means to be in a safe and or unsafe science lab. So we're able to pick that up right away. So this picture, if we start on the left top left, we will see where the student Savannah, she is drinking a toxic chemical, which we already discovered we are not supposed to be drinking our chemicals or playing with them or experimenting on ourselves. So that's a no-no, first no-no. You have also an electrical equipment on the running water that is very unsafe because, for example, if it was plugged in, that could cause electrocution. And we also have a scissors in the electrical outlet, and more than likely this is made of iron, and you know what that means. If the student touches that scissors, you know that that would mean some electrocution, and that would result in he or she having to go to the hospital because of shock. If we look at the bottom left, we see students will singing away, not paying attention, having the test tube over the naked flame. Um, Maybe grade 7 students would not notice, but just a tip, when you do go into the lab and you are doing experiments and you're heating chemicals in test tube, it is always good to remember to just sway the test tube to and fro over the flame and not hold it directly over the flame, because you know most of the time our test tube that you do use over the Bunsen burner flame, which the thing with the flame coming out of it, that's the name of it. It could cause the glass of the test tube to break, and if there is a chemical that is highly flammable, that could cause explosion. So you have to be really careful. Um, if we look at that snake there, we will realize that that is also unsafe. In previous slides, we spoke about the fact that even animals should not be in the lab. And also, if we look on the floor in the middle, we see a test tube broken. Not a test tube, I'm sorry, a beaker broken with chemical on the floor that is not cleaned up, and no one is paying attention. So right away we will draw for our lab safety rule, which says we must always clean up spills and chemicals and know how to dispose of, like broken glass and chemicals. So that was a rule that was disregarded in this lab. We see also the boys Evan and Freddie playing in the lab. It's a no, no, no playing in the lab, absolutely no playing. And they're also eating and drinking. Perhaps Evan is also drinking some type of chemical, so that's a no as well. And finally, on the bottom right, you will see two girls, Sarah and Lindsay. They are chatting away, which is another no-no. When you go to the lab, it's always good, especially as young scientists, to be observant, because you don't want to miss things happening in the lab, especially from experiments that you need to know for future, especially if you are interested in science. So it's always good to pay attention. Scientists always are very observant. Now, Lindsay, she disregarded the rule that says whenever you go into a lab, you have long hair, it should be tied back. So you see where the Bunsen burner flame actually caught her hair on fire. She was not realizing now, but if this actually happened, very soon she would have realized, and that would be a major commotion in that lab with the kids. So there's a lot of wrongs in this picture, and it's so ironic that this lab actually gained first place in lab safety. It has fire extinguisher, first aid kit, which is very important, but yet the students are disregarding the safety rules. Yes, so this is basically an unsafe lab to work in. By contrast, we will see in this